What's going on, YouTube? It's the last good man in Jersey here with a message that I think can help a lot of women on the market get better results. And we're going to be very specific about this. Women 40 plus, probably 40 to 45, want kids, don't have kids, looking to get married, looking to move your life on to the next stage and having problems doing so. I want to talk to you because you may be doing something that is shooting you in the foot, causing you to have more problems than you would if you just kind of changed your thinking. Okay. Before we get in, click like, click subscribe. If you want to talk about any of the points here, feel free to drop some comments. I'd love to chat about it. All of that said, I want to relate to you a recent date that I had. Went out with a woman, went out twice. She was early 40s, strong career, great education. Her life, as far as education, career, financial opportunities, was on track. But she wasn't married. She didn't have kids. She was sensing the urgency of that. We went out on a couple of dates where she was asking a lot of questions of me that were basically geared at trying to understand whether or not I fit her criteria for a husband. She never came out and asked that question explicitly, but it was pretty obvious where all the questions were going. So felt more like a couple of interviews than a couple of dates. We didn't keep going out. Traded a couple of emails with her after that, but ultimately I decided this is not what I want. So I moved on. And I'm sure that there are a lot of women who are going through these similar situations of meeting guys, going through sort of a screening process, and then finding that the guys just kind of vanish. Well, let's talk about some things that you will want to consider if you've got these guys in front of you so that you can move past the first couple of dates and potentially find someone who you can build with. All right. First things first. Here is a very hard lesson, but it's a reality that you need to face, and the sooner you face it, the better off you are. If you're someone who gets it early, then you're better off than someone who gets it late. When we're looking at women who are, early 40s, never married, no kids, you don't have kids, you want them, there's a reality here. It's a game of musical chairs. You've got 5 contestants and you've got 1 chair. Not everybody's going to get a seat. The guys who you want to have kids with, who you want to get married to and have kids with, they're the chairs. And the women who are looking to have these kids are the contestants. The ones who wait, the ones who don't make an effort are going to be the ones who don't have a seat. So don't be that person. Figure out what you can do to present yourself well so that you're the person who's got the seat. You're the person who's got the spouse and the kid when the clock runs out, as opposed to being one of the many other people who don't have a seat because they didn't know how to play the game. You're walking into these dates and you have the person in front of you. The guy that might be the right guy for you is in front of you. What you don't want to do right there is start interviewing for a husband. I know it's fundamentally what you're trying to get at, but it's not where you want to start the conversation. Instead of trying to figure out whether or not you've got somebody who could be a husband, what you need to do is figure out whether you've got somebody who wants to be your friend. As guys, we're not walking into dates thinking, I'm in a hurry to get a wife. Quite the opposite. We're probably not in a hurry to get a wife. Not to say we're opposed to marriage, but it is to say that we vet differently than women do. Guy in his early 40s doesn't have a biological clock. Maybe a psychological clock, but not a biological one. And a guy in his, early 40s can date a woman in her early 30s. So the timetables are very different. The urgency is very different. What we as guys are generally thinking about is risk. Um, Figure divorce rate in America is roughly 50%. Half the guys that you meet, you should expect to um, come from, divorce. Depends on kind of how early in their life, but they know what it's like to not have both their biological parents in the house with them at the same time. Probably not an experience that they want to repeat in their own lives. And even if they aren't the products of divorced households, they've probably got friends who they know who are the products of divorced households. So again, a lot of experience with divorce and the problems it can create. This is important because it means that, as guys, we look at divorce and we look at it more from a more of a cost standpoint than I think women do. We're the ones who are going to have to get into the marriage with the ring. We're the ones who are probably making more because women generally don't get into relationships with men who make less than them. There are exceptions, but as a general rule, that's the case. We're the ones who are often hit harder in the divorce. We're less likely to have full custody of the kids, get alimony. So there are a lot of risks associated with marriage, specifically for us, which means that we're more apprehensive about marriage than women might be. Not to say that women don't have the same concerns about marriages being successful, but for guys, we're looking at things with a different lens. We want to make sure that if we get into a relationship with someone, we go in believing that it can work. And that means that we're going to vet early for friends. Is this a friend? Is this someone who I enjoy spending time with? Is this someone who I want to be with? If I want to be with them, then I can start to explore some of the other aspects. But I'm starting off at friendship first, then I'm moving on to other things. If a woman is starting off on marriage first, she's trying to leapfrog what to us is the most important step, which is figuring out whether or not we're compatible. Do we have similar interests? Do we have similar personalities? Do we have similar life views? These are the things that you really want to try to understand and sell in a first date. Think of it this way. This first date, it's an interview. And if you want to call yourself the corporation, you've got the job, you've got the womb, that's fine. But those interviews are two-way streets. You want to understand whether this candidate is the right candidate to be employed. However, you also need to sell yourself because this candidate is saying, I've got other options. There are plenty of jobs out here. And if I don't fill your role because I go fill another one, my life's still great. You're still in the hole. So, from that perspective, if I'm not hearing that this is the right place for me to want to work, if I'm not hearing that this is the right type of woman for me to want to build a relationship with, I'm out. It's really important to understand that you're building a friendship first. You're presenting yourself as a friend first. And then once you've established that, once you've built some comfort that you are someone that the guy wants to spend his time with, then you can start to explore kind of what that means longer term, what sort of possibilities you have. But you've got to understand this. Think through the online dating experience, understanding that when you meet someone for the first time, you are fundamentally strangers. You've traded some texts, you maybe talked on the phone, but this is your first face-to-face. So you are strangers. Would you go to someone who is a coworker? You kind of know them from work, but you've never really sat down and talked to them. And would you start that conversation off with marriage and where things could go if you two were serious? Probably not. They're going to think you're crazy. They don't really know you. They don't have a relationship with you. You want to get to know the person. You've got to allow time for that. There's an urgency. I get it. But there's also a reality that sets in. 6 months from now, 12 months from now, you could be doggedly determined to find a husband, only focusing on people who seem right off the bat to be interested. But now a year's gone by, you're 1 year later in your potential, and you still don't have anybody. Or 6 months, 12 months could go by. You didn't start quite so fast, but you allowed things to build. And now you've got someone who does have some potential because you didn't chase them off the bat at the beginning. It's important to keep this in mind because you can chase guys off before things ever get a chance to take off. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you have to understand that guys and women are looking at these relationships and looking at these first dates differently. We are not walking in looking for wives. We're walking in looking for friends who can grow into more. And if we don't see the friendship, the marriage is not going to happen. I'm not going to marry someone who I can't be friends with. I'm not going to marry someone who I don't have a very strong relationship with. Present yourself as a friend, not as a colleague. If you're selling yourself based on your education and your income, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Your education and your income fundamentally are your safety net. Because of your education, because of your income, you can take care of yourself. If things go south, you are okay. That's fundamentally what that is. So if you come into a relationship or a situation, and as you're talking to a guy, what you're presenting to him is you have a safety net. What you're saying is you have a good reason to bounce if things aren't going your way. That means you're not someone I'm as eager to get into a serious relationship with. Definitely not someone I'm as eager to get married to, because you already know. If you don't like the way things are going, you're out. Think about that. Really keep it in mind. As you look for guys, as you look for dates, just, kind of recognize that it's a process. You meet, you get to know each other, and then you talk about where things can go. But you need to follow those steps sequentially. Otherwise, you could end up, one chair, 3, 4, 5 contestants, how many you want to call it? Not everybody's getting a seat. You don't want to be the person who's left out. And the other thing to think about is, what you're really after. If all you wanted was to get pregnant, if this was just about a kid, you could go to a sperm bank. You could get pregnant by someone you were dating. It's not that you just want the kid, you want the family. You want to be part of something bigger, or you want the financial security of the husband. Okay. In all of those instances, you need someone who's going to buy into the idea of wanting to be in something that can grow. And for me to know that for me to believe that I'm in something that can grow, I need to believe that there's real compatibility with the person who I'm meeting. Personality, sense of humor, beliefs. We need to gel. Additionally, think through who you're talking to. If you're 40, then the guy across from the table is either much older than you or has challenges. Maybe they're short. Maybe they're unattractive. Maybe they have several kids already. There's a reason why a 40-year-old guy is sitting across the table from a 40-year-old woman when he could be sitting across the table from a 30-year-old woman. Think through those things and recognize that you can win, but you need to play the game correctly. And the right move is to start off presenting yourself as a friend as opposed to presenting yourself as someone who's interviewing husbands. Think that through on your dates, give it a try, and see if it changes your results.